Okay, hello everyone and welcome to today's speaker series. Today's series is digital marketing tips, tools, and best practices for communicating your brand. So hopefully you'll be able to learn some things today. First off, you might want to stick around till the end of this today because we are giving away, or actually I should say the examiner is giving away a free digital ad to one lucky chamber member today. So you'll want to stick around for that. And then Bob said that you are welcome to ask any questions on the chat. So if you have any questions that you would like to ask, feel free to interject. Everybody will be put on mute until the end, but if you have a question or whatever, then feel free to go ahead and put that in the chat line. So a little bit about today's presenter. I'm going to start off. Bob Musilek specializes in SMB, which is server message block, SME, which is small to medium enterprise, to large enterprise digital transformation and education. Bob has advanced competency in teaching and helping business owners understand the use of data and analytics to help make marketing decisions in this new digital space. Bob has 18 plus years working with digital marketing, websites, analytics, big data, SEM, PPC, Google AdWords, Google My Business, SEO, LBS, SMO, and video optimization, display, retargeting, geofencing. Wow, Bob, this is a lot.
Well, you can quit anytime. About LBS, though, that one's an interesting one. Anybody know what that one was? Maybe we should give something away on that.
We should.
Location-based service.
Ah, there you go. We're learning something new already.
There you go.
Bob can help businesses with strategic direction and tools which help clients increase brand awareness and revenue. He's also certified with Google Ad Search, Google Analytics, Google My Business, and Waze certified. So everyone, let's give a big, warm Independence welcome to Bob. Take it away, Bob.
Wow, that's an opening. Thank you so much. I didn't realize it was that long. I didn't know you were going to read all of that. Lots of acronyms there, and we can talk about acronyms over the course of this particular show, or we can talk afterwards too about acronyms. So there's a lot of them within our world. Well, I want to thank you all for the opportunity to talk to the Independence Group. And this is really an exciting time for us in the world of digital. It's been changing and evolving very quickly since COVID has hit, and a lot of people were caught off guard. So I'm going to take you through a presentation that is going to be sort of a high-level opportunity to look at a few things. I've done this a number of times, and this is generally where I start when I do a fresh type of presentation to a group. And then afterwards, I have a lot of individuals or businesses who will come to me and say, hey, I love what you talked about, or I hated what you talked about, but I want to know more about X, Y, or Z. And that's kind of how this all fits together. There should be a couple aha moments out of this, even with this being at the kind of the baseline, holistic, high overview level of things. And if we ever want to drill in, we can certainly do that at the end or individually. So let's get started. Just to introduce who we are and take a look at what we do. Maybe you recognize the name. Maybe you have never heard of Local IQ, but hopefully you've heard of maybe USA Today or Gannett. And those two names are the parent company of Local IQ. Local IQ is a subsidiary of the USA Today network. And kind of how all this fits together is that there are a lot of mergers and acquisitions and things going on in news and information as we speak. Things are constantly changing in our world. And what you're looking at right now is a map of two very, very large publishers of news and information that came together to form the USA Today network. This network is being built out right now as we speak. The black and the blues represent the two different companies and where they were located. One was called Gatehouse, one was called Gannett. They both came together in November of last year, and through January we settled up and we decided to build this out under the USA Today network. And so you'll see a lot more of us coming through the end of 2020 into 2021. It's a very exciting time for us, and we're excited to be here with Independence. A little bit more about who we are and our reach. We have hundreds of local news websites. And when I say that, I'm talking about, for example, the Examiner in Independence. That is a local news and information site that is underneath the umbrella of the USA Today network. On the other side of the city there, we have the Leavenworth Times. And that's another example of an owned and operated news and information outlet that we have, that we work with, and we have an actual owned and operated website where we're publishing news and information on that local site to the communities that we serve in those areas and beyond. As we continue to build out this network, you're going to see it from, I'll just use the term of Maine to Maui. And we're going to cover the entire United States with our network and then beyond, because we are in Guam also. Anybody ever been to Guam? I think I'd like to go there sometime. Our mission is also to provide news and information to those local communities and then beyond across the United States, but also products and services. And the one product and service that Local IQ works with is digital marketing. And so that's where we all fit in today. The digital marketing aspect of it comes under the brand of Local IQ. And Local IQ is the largest digital agency now in the United States. We are Google's largest premier partner. We work with most of the channels that are out there. When I say channels, there really isn't one that we don't work with. Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, Waze, and the list will go on and on as you start thinking about all the different social channels, video channels, and just digital channels that are out there. So I wanted to make that kind of up front and unknown to all of you so you can see who we are and what we do. A little bit of a plug for us also, right? So along the way, if you have any questions about anything, please don't hesitate. So we're going to get started. We're going to cut through the clutter. So as we get started and we start thinking about it, I wanted to show you the digital building blocks, or what we look at from a perspective of, you know, when you think about digital marketing, what are the 1, 2, 3 steps that you can take? And this is really it. It's as simple as it gets. And I'm going to go through the first 2 with you, a little heavier than I will the last, but that comes in, find audience, and we'll talk about that kind of towards the end. So as we look at step number 1, the foundation, that's that first impression. Generally, you think about that with the website or maybe social media. And a lot of people kind of consider that even interchangeable. I've had a lot of people say, well, I don't really use a website, I use Facebook. And we'll talk a little bit about that. In step 2, the be found aspect of it, we'll also talk about that and the SERP, S-E-R-P, the search engine results page, like Google, like Bing, like Yahoo. And does anybody, well, I shouldn't, I won't ask any questions. I'll just keep moving, I guess. But Google, I was going to ask a question about Google, and I have a fun one. But Google is the powerhouse of search. And when we think about search just in general, Google is really that foundational piece. It's interchangeable now with what we consider to be search just in general. I'm going to Google that, right? Some people will say Bing, and some people will say Yahoo. I know that Bing has its place. It's preloaded on a lot of the browsers now, or has been, and I know that it still has its place out there. But then we can also talk about talk to text, which is going on at the very top of my presentation for those of you who maybe can't hear. And when we think about the search engine results, we'll talk about that kind of in general, and we'll get into Google a little bit deeper as we get into the be found stage. That last stage is find audience and drive opportunity. And we'll talk a little bit about that as we start talking about trends and timing. But before we get started with the foundation, I want to talk to you about that first floor and really go below the first floor. And when we start putting a foundation together, we have to lay something called footings. It's the foundation of the build out of your foundation. And so I wanted to show you that example as this gentleman's pouring the footings for a slab. In our case, the foundation will be a website, Google My Business, and your analytics. Those 3 things are really the foundation, or below that foundation, the footings to really build off of. And so we're going to talk about those 3 things at a high level and drill in a little bit on why I'm saying this. there's going to be an aha moment here, I hope, at some point in time. And some people I've seen fright in their face. I usually do these in a face-to-face arena. And so when I start going around the room and I look at some of the things that I say, all of a sudden I see fear in some people's eyes. And I'll point out a couple things where the fear might come in. So as we get started, why the website, right? First and foremost, it adds credibility. Now, I grew up in an interesting era. The era that I grew up in, there was actually the original search engine. And if anybody knows what that is, some people have said the encyclopedia. I've had people raise their hands. Encyclopedia, it's an original search engine, right? Used to be in everybody's home on the bookshelf. Well, in my world, the original search engine was the phone book, the Yellow Pages. I grew up with it. It was a 100-year-old product. And somewhere around when I was in Columbus, Ohio, around 2007, we started feeling the impact of digital really heavily. And then in 2007 to 2011, things started transforming on the East Coast and the West Coast, really making a big change from the phone book into search. And so now I relate all of this in that credibility situation to my kids. My kids have not grown up with a phone book. They don't even know what the Yellow Pages are, except when my oldest was young enough, really young, I used it as a booster seat. But the thought of it is that, you know, the phone book made you credible and it made you legit. And in my kids' world now, my oldest daughter graduated from university. She's out on her own. She's doing her thing. She's a pure dig-minded person, right? She carries a handheld device. And if you don't have a website, she wonders if you're really legit. Are you a real business or not? And so I put that to you in that sense that, you know, some people will say Facebook, some people will say website. I say this is that the website or that landing page, that website landing page makes you credible, makes you legitimate. If you don't have one that was built after 2017, I ask you to check to see if it's secured. And if not, we probably need to talk. And I've had people ask, well, Bob, how do you know if it's secure? Type in your own web address and look in the corner there in the line and see if there's a padlock, if it's locked, or if it says secured or not secured. So there's my first tip or trick. If it's not secured, don't get alarmed today, but over the course of time, I need you to think that one through, because Google is going to take and look at that, and they're going to start working on those algorithms, and they're going to take those ones that aren't secure, and they may push those down in search. They may, in some cases, even erase them from search based on security. And I don't know what Google's going to do day in and day out. Nobody really does. They don't let people know what the algorithm is doing. But we do know that it needs to be secured based upon that. And so you need to get your SSL certificate and get that thing secured. And if there's anything that comes up along the way there that you have some questions about that, please, we'll talk about that towards the end about security, and maybe we can help you. Number 2 on the list is brand development. With a website, you can work on that and make your brand recognizable. You control your brand, you control your message, which is number 3, the marketing message itself, right? And when we start talking about marketing in that third step, I'm going to refer back to this idea of marketing just in general and the website. When we run marketing campaigns, I always ask people, what is the message and where are we going to land it? And generally, we want to land it to your website, if at all possible. Some people will again say, well, land it to my Facebook page. But we lose control when we start working with Facebook, and I'll explain that in maybe the next slide here, I guess. So what's the message? Where do I land it? That really needs to align, because Google looks at that when they think about search just in general, especially if you're doing any type of marketing. In the algorithm, Google gives everything, what they call it a quality score when it comes to marketing. That quality score has to do with the message that you're putting out there for search and then bringing them through. So for example, I'll use a beer example. If I'm broadcasting a message about Budweiser and I was to land them onto a page about Miller beer, that wouldn't align correctly. Talking about Budweiser, landing them on Miller. So I want to make that point clear, is that the website really has that ability to control what your individual people are seeing when you bring them through on the message. So number 4 is about control, and I was talking and alluding to that throughout this. With the website, you have at your disposal the ability to control what people see and the way you are perceived. It's not Mark Zuckerberg telling people, it's not Mark Zuckerberg controlling the algorithms. You have the ability to control your own website, your own destiny. And that's the one thing that I will say. I have a particular business in in Topeka, Kansas, who has a message that Mark Zuckerberg didn't like. He has a particular type of a store that he works with. It's a pawn store and a gun store. And his Second Amendment right is to talk about guns and things of that nature. Well, Mark Zuckerberg doesn't like that, and he won't allow him to be on his site. As a matter of fact, he was removed. And he called me one day and said, Bob, my page has been removed from Facebook. I need help. And so that's where we started working on his website and really controlling his message. So again, he's not at the disposal or the perception or anybody else's control like Mark Zuckerberg and Facebook. He has his own control now. So his brand, his message, he can go ahead and put that out, talking about, you know, the products and services that he sells. It's a legitimate gun store with legitimate messages that he wants to put out there. Number 2 on this, or point number 2 on this, is under control, is data collection from the website. Data will drive all of your future marketing and purchasing decisions. All your marketing should be looked at and not just in the idea of what is the message, but then what is the message, and then start looking at the data that we start pulling from that. The minute any type of marketing campaign goes live, we can pull data. Day 1, week 1, we can start seeing data from that campaign. And digital campaigns can be very fluid. We can change them every day if you really wanted to. I don't recommend it, but they can be that fluid. In point number 3, it takes out the guesswork. You have concrete evidence. As people are coming into your website, we can see what they're doing through something called Google Analytics, which I'm going to talk about and touch upon in future slides. We can see how the actual people coming through engage with your website and what content they're looking at. You know, what is the user experience like on the desktop, on the mobile version? And are they finding what they're looking for, or are they bouncing? Bounce rate is one of those things I can help you look at. For example, I have a gentleman that I just worked with recently, and we were talking about his user experience. And so we started looking at his pages, and he was bringing through quite a bit of traffic. And 87% of the people who came through bounced within 6 seconds of hitting that page. And it had to do with user experience. The message that he was broadcasting wasn't giving them, and on the page that they were landing, it wasn't giving them the answer quickly. And so in the mobile world, they couldn't find what they were looking for, and they bounced. And so I want to talk to you a little bit further about that, but think about that when you start looking at analytics. And as we talk about analytics itself, I will share some ideas with you in the next slides, getting into it a little deeper. But website analytics also provides you with keywords, keyword phrases, and queries that people are searching for. And it helps you build out content upon that website to make sure that that experience is better as people come through. So as I wrap up the website, some tips and some tricks. Websites need love and attention over time. So think about this. I use this analogy. I've delivered 4 babies in my life into this world. Each baby, when it comes into this world, needs love and attention over time to become a healthy human. Your website is really the same thing. It needs love and attention over time to become healthy. I've had a lot of people tell me they built a website and they just set it and they forget it. Well, that's neglect. And so I try to point this out to them. If you were to neglect your child, it might not grow up so healthy. And, the same thing with your website. It needs that love and attention. So what do, Bob? I say this: treat it as if it's an important appointment. If you were going to go to the coffee shop and meet your best customer, right? You're going to schedule an hour at Starbucks and you're going to meet with them. You're probably not going to be answering emails in the middle of that. You're probably not going to be answering your phone. You're going to dedicate your attention and time to that client, your most important client. Well, the same thing holds true for your website. I say this, schedule time with your website, 30, 60 minutes a month, to give it that type of attention that it needs. And maybe it just starts out with a quick analysis of the site and looking at it. I also have this question. Well, Bob, what type of attention should I give it? So Google loves content, and content is the powerhouse of which really makes Google, you know, they're indexing all that content that you put out there. So you need to put fresh and relevant content up onto your pages over time. And I have people say, well, what type of content? It could come in the form of video. It could come in the form of a written word. It could come in the form of social links or things of that nature. But those are the things that are going to help your site become more powerful over time. So attention in the form of the written word can be done, you know, a quick few sentences and added to a page, or maybe it's a blog, things of that nature. Here's a freebie that I'm going to give each and every one of you. So I have a lot of small business owners that will ask me this question. Well, I don't know what I should write about, or I don't know what I should put up there. Here it is. Take over the next 20 days or 30 days and field, or whoever fields your phone calls, if you would, ask them to go ahead and jot down the types of questions that people are asking, whether it's the secretary at the front desk, whether it's your salespeople, whether it's maybe you. And if you can jot down some of the questions that are being asked, I say then bring them to a meeting where everybody meets and put them out on the table and look for commonality there. If people are asking, they're searching. Some of those questions you can just turn right into FAQs, for example. You know, what is the best so-and-so, and then or widget, and then you answer it with the best widget is X, Y, and Z. And you feed that right back into the page of the website that aligns with what is the best widget. I hope that makes sense. If they're asking, they're searching. That's an easy, flat out easy one for anybody to take control of. Make sure that you have conversion points in your website to reduce the bounce or scrolling. And what's a conversion point? A conversion point to me might be when I look at the page itself and I'm looking for a couple particular things. One, is the phone number clear? Is it healthy? Is it right at the top where I can see it? If I want to click to call feature, maybe I'm in the mobile device, right? Click to call, boom, I'm there. Do you accept credit cards? If you do, I don't generally carry cash. I like to see that right at the top. Hey, I take MasterCard and Visa. I offer 24/7 emergency service. I can be there in an hour, and I take MasterCard and Visa. That converts me, guys. That's just a simple speed statement. I'm there, right? That would reduce a possibility of bounce. What about a form fill, maybe off to the right if you have more questions? I'm at work. I don't want the boss to know that I'm looking. I have a question about roofing. I'll give you my name and give me an email back, or hit me back with a phone call maybe later tonight, if you would, please, right? And then my last tip or trick is make sure that it's responsive. It's not just mobile friendly, but it's responsive. And that has to do with security too. It's secured and it's responsive. I always tell people, take a look at it. I'll have people go to Best Buy and go to different devices and look at their site. You know, sometimes it appears different on an Apple device than it does on a Google device. I say, take a look at it just to make sure that everything's aligned. You'd be shocked at the people who would say, well, wait a minute, I'm on the Samsung device and it doesn't look the same. Why is that? It could be just a snafu in your code, right? So that's kind of my tips or tricks on the website at a high level. Any questions, Luke? Anybody see any questions? No? Okay, keep moving. So in that foundational piece, I also made mention of Google My Business. I feel this is extremely important in this day and age, especially now in this world of, we call it directory. The old phone book used to be called a directory, right? It was the white pages, it was the yellow pages. This is the Google directory, right? Google My Business. There's hundreds and hundreds of directory sites out there, but Google is by far the most powerful. It is provided free of charge by Google. If you have not claimed your Google My Business listing, I strongly recommend that you do that. This gives you the ability to control your message. And what you need to do is search by name, your name, and then see what pops up. If you haven't looked recently, please do. If you haven't claimed it and you need help, please feel free to talk to us about that. It isn't very difficult. It can be done by, on your own, or there are multiple ways of not just claiming this one, but Bing, Yahoo, City Search, Yelp, Yellow Book, the hundreds and hundreds that are out there. But I strongly, strongly recommend that you claim this. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about this on a future slide, but when you do claim it, you need to make sure that you have your account set up correctly. You have your name and your password secured. This is an aha moment for many people. They've claimed something on Facebook or on Google, and they don't remember when it was done or where it was done. And I'll probably touch on this one more time in another slide. It's extremely important that you treat that name, login name, and that login password like gold. If I was to have a bag of money, I would probably take that bag of money and I'd put it in my safe. I wouldn't set it outside my door for people to go ahead and access. I wouldn't give it to my secretary. Well, maybe I would, but I would at least make sure that I've got it secured, right? And that I always have access. I cannot tell you how many business owners have told me that, oh, somebody who set that up years ago and they're no longer with the company. And I go, because that starts the pain points. We need to make sure that we get that piece secured. Your Google account is that email address and that password. And it may only be used for, one, setting up your Google My Business, your YouTube account. It may also be set up for your blog, your G blog, or a few other things, but you need to secure that up. So Google My Business claiming, that's a piece of the foundation. So who can have a Google My Business listing? Well, physical locations can, like restaurants, stores, salons, right? Any physical location is entitled to one. Mobile businesses now can also have it, like handyman and delivery services, exterminators, cleaners, things of that nature who don't traditionally have a brick and mortar store. Individual practitioners can do that, like doctors and lawyers. They can have their own Google My Business set up. And then service area businesses also can have a Google My Business, brands that might travel around. That, again, is an opportunity for you to claim that listing. And I'm going to say this. There's been some, I call them roto-dialers or roto-calls or robocalls that continually call people about their Google My Business listings. If you've been called about those, generally that's not Google. I just want to inform you, Google doesn't call people about that. It's generally a company out of California trying to claim your business listing for you, and they will charge you a fee, and then they have control of your listing. Or there's another company that I know has been calling a lot of people, and either they're in Malaysia or somewhere in India, and they call everybody. It's a robo-dialer, and they try to get access to your Google My Business listing. There is no reason for you to give that up. Keep that under your control. Tips or tricks, right? Here it is, and this is the big one. It has to do with your Google account, your login, right? Make sure that you have that login and that password, because it applies to your Google My Business listing, to your YouTube channel. And when I say YouTube channel, I have a lot of people say, Bob, I don't have one. And I say this, no harm, no foul. We can get one set up. It really should be built parallel to your website. A good look, a good skin, I call it skin. The theme of that YouTube channel can really have a look and feel of your website. But Bob, I don't have any videos. Not a problem. Make the connection, and over time, you're going to want to work with that. We can talk about video. It's really easy in today's new environment with a handheld device, whether it's an Apple phone or whatever, to make a video and at least post one, right? Maybe some editing, post work can be done on that, and we can talk about that too at a later time. I call it the Blair Witch effect, right? Anybody ever seen Blair Witch? You know, that handheld thing, right? I see people making those all the time. They're real. They have a real feeling to them. And then last but not least, Google Analytics. If you don't have your Google Analytics set up, it's going to be set up through that same Gmail account. And if you don't, we'll talk about that now. We need to get you set up with Google Analytics. And then people go, well, why? So let's talk about the analytics itself. It's just a free service from Google. It provides you the ability to kind of take that deep dive or deeper dive into your website to see what's going on with the pages within the website. Where is the traffic coming from? What types of interface, are they coming from mobile devices? Are they coming from a handheld device, tablets? Are they coming from a desktop? What is it? And then again, thinking about the way they get there. So analytics can be very scary to a lot of people. I say this, first and foremost, it needs to be set up. The code, it's just a little piece of code that can be embedded into the pages or the headers and the footers, and it can be set up so that you get a data flow. If you haven't done it today, we can do that. I just started working with a company in Hutchinson, Kansas. It's a 100-year-old company, and they finally got a website together the last 3 years, and they didn't realize when they built the website that they should have analytics hooked up. So we missed a couple years of data, but we finally got it hooked up, and now the analytics is starting to drive decisions based upon what's going on with their website and the opportunities that are in front of them. So as we think about analytics a little bit further and digging in, right? Is it hooked up? Is it hooked up correctly? Do you have access? And can you enter in and see the data flow? And if you cannot, or if you do not know how, we can talk about that together individually or at the end of this or whatever it might be. And we can start figuring out how we get that data flow going. Because as you can see from this example, simple things like demographics, interests, behavior, geography. Is it mobile? What kind of technology are they using? Desktop, mobile, or tablet? Some of the things that we've talked about is all going to be in there. How relevant is it to you? It can be very relevant depending on what you're up to. And then we start thinking about e-commerce in this new world of COVID. And I wasn't prepared for e-commerce and I don't know what's going on there. We can talk that through also. We can set up goals in analytics. We can set up all kinds of different functionality, including the Search Console that tells me organically how people are finding me. So there's a lot of things that analytics will do for you well beyond this 1 hour conversation that we're having here. Luke, any questions yet?
I don't see any.
Perfect. So here's the simple breakdown, the ABCs of analytics. Acquisition, right, refers to how people are getting to your website. How are they coming about? Where is the traffic flow coming from? B is the behavior. It reports on what visitors are doing within your website. I can show you a behavior flow when they come in from the homepage. And as the example goes, which I told you about a gentleman who 87% of his traffic was leaving after the home page because they didn't know where to go when they were looking for the other specific things that they were trying to do. The home page just didn't answer the question. They were on a mobile device, they bounced, they're out. And so we had to work on conversion and thinking about that home page a little bit differently. And then when we start thinking about conversions, I've mentioned that again, conversions, what's happening? Maybe a conversion to you is setting a goal in analytics and seeing how many people form filled on your get to know me page, or you want to know more. I have financial people and they use cost calculators. By the way, cost calculators, everybody loves calculators for whatever reason. Whether it's an auto calculator or a mortgage calculator, they love those. Those are lead gen tools. And a lot of finance companies, I'll work with them to figure out how we can go ahead and turn that calculator into a conversion tool for that particular company, generating more leads, right? Most people want leads. They want conversions. So as I close out this slide, I say the ABCs, the 1, 2, 3s, acquisition, behavior, conversions. And again, don't feel bad if you don't have your analytics hooked up or if you don't have access. We need to help you figure that out because as you move forward into 2021, your analytics are going to be extremely important to you as we look at the trends and the opportunities that took place in 2020. It's a changed world. I have a tool, and this is a personal story. Leading up to this year, through Google. It's called a forecasting tool. So they've taken every search that's ever taking place on the Google search engine, and it's in the formulas and the algorithms. They've tracked everything. By the way, they're tracking everything about you, just so you know. Be careful, right? With that being said, they had up until this year what I could really forecast forward for somebody. In the beginning of COVID, things were still kind of forecasting the same way. Now we're deeper into it, and things have changed. The forecasting tool is different. The trends are different. Some trends haven't changed, like weather, or we know that Black Friday is coming, right? That's going to be a seasonal trend or an opportunity with Cyber Monday. And if you're not prepared for that trend, by the way, you need to start preparing today, because Black Friday is going to come like a freight train, and Cyber Monday is going to blow up, right? Shopping is changed forever. So anyway, thinking about those seasonal trends, thinking about those opportunities is a key opportunity or key performance indicator that we need to work with to understand. Analytics wrap up. Again, any questions there? I say the ABCs. Data is the driver of good marketing decisions. There isn't any money that you need to spend anymore on marketing that can't be tracked in digital, that is. If it's digital, it's trackable. 100%, whether it's trackable through certain types of codes that we can place into ads and into your website, or whether it's your Google Analytics codes and tracking. It's all trackable. It's very transparent nowadays in the form of data and analytics. All right, so be found. As we move on to that foundational piece, that high level, I hope there was an aha moment or two. I really hit hard on the logins and the passwords. So now be found, right? Be found on Google, Bing, and Yahoo. So there's two ways to be found. And I'll talk about the two that most people can relate to. There's other ways, but I want to talk about these two because there's generally some confusion on this as we look at these two different forms of marketing. On the left is something called Google Ads. It was called Google AdWords in its previous life. They modified it. Bing calls it Bing Ads. Yahoo is the same way. These are word ads. You can see if you look at the example on the left, there's a little green box that says ad. This is a pay for performance model through Google and Bing. They refer to it as pay per click. And again, the idea there is that we're putting that particular ad out in front of people who are searching for that particular service or product at a time of need. Think about it like the old Yellow Pages. I generally didn't pick up the phone book just to read it for the heck of it, right? I was picking it up because I had a need or a want. Money in hand, I have a leaky pipe right now, it's dripping, and I need an emergency plumber. I might type in emergency plumber. I might type in leaky faucet. I might type in who is the best plumber in Kansas City for leaky faucets. I might talk to Google. I might talk to Siri. I might talk to whatever device I have and ask that same question. On the left is an ad that might appear when that happens. I can make that ad appear for any search. That's called pay per click. We build those types of campaigns for businesses like you for every city and every market across the United States. As you look at that ad, it's consistent of words, right? On the right is a display ad. Again, that could be across the Google network or across our owned and operated network, the USA Today network, or it could be on ESPN.com or Better Homes and Gardens, or wherever those ads might appear on any website across whatever network. Impression-based advertising is about eyeballs, being seen. It's exactly the way you pay for it also. Cost per 1,000 eyeballs versus on the left, pay per click, right? If your ad shows up on the left 100 times and nobody clicks on it, you owe nothing to Google, right? Nothing was taken from the account. On the right, you show up 100 times and you generate eyeballs to look at it. That's an impression. You're generally paying for that in advance, right? And there's a fee, it's called cost per 1,000, and that's generally we see ranges depending on the network, but anywhere from $8 to $12 per thousand generally. I know on certain other channels, it can be as high as $30 or $40 per thousand, depending on the network, depending on the channel, depending on what you're doing with video and so on. So just to make it very clear, these are two marketing strategies and efforts. And they're a little different in the fact that, again, one is pay for performance, one is impression based. I hope that clears that up. As you look at this then, if you want to get to page 1 of Google for search, you're not going to be using impression-based marketing. You're going to be using pay per click, right? We build these types of ads for the 24-hour Kansas City emergency plumber, right? I can build that ad. I can put that out in front of related searches for emergency plumber in Kansas City. Every keyword phrase, phraseology, question that's being asked about emergency plumbers, plumbing, leaky pipes, whatever it might be, hundreds upon thousands upon keyword phrases that we can put that out in front of and show up on the first page of Google tomorrow. That's the fluidness and the flexibility of that type of marketing. I have one in Kansas City that I work with right now, a particular company, and I follow weather patterns. And if there's a hailstorm tomorrow in Kansas City, which isn't likely right now today, but if there was one, I have a weather-related campaign sitting in the hopper, ready to go. So when he says, Bob, I had hail in Blue Springs, I can bring up the Blue Springs hail campaign, and I can be out in front of search tomorrow with that hail damage type of campaign. That's the beautiful part about this. It's very fluid. It's very flexible. The minute it goes up, the data starts rolling. I have data points that I can look at. I can see who's searching. I can see impressions. I can see clicks and click-throughs. I can see what they do then when they hit my website through my Google Analytics. Everything is very clear and transparent.
Hey, Bob.
Yes.
Cindy had a question, on the impression-based, display ad campaigns. How are the impressions spaced out? Because I know we put a ceiling on the amount of impressions maybe per day to reach the ultimate goal, but she's just asking, so if you pay in advance for the display ads, impression-based, and based on response, you exceed your number of eyeballs, what happens? Does your ad disappear until you pony up more money?
Yeah, so, they have in our world, like, let's just use our network as an example. We pace it out. We can pace those out over time. So we have the ability to measure the volume that it's at and pace those ads so that they serve a certain number each day or each hour, or each week. We have that ability. From the data though, Cindy, it would be interesting because if there's a lot of search going on, or excuse me, a lot of eyeballs and the ability to be seen, you may want to throttle up your budget because the trend or the opportunity is there. And what is that saying in the farm? When the sun is shining, make hay. How does that go? Something like that. And that could be an opportunity. Same way with pay per click. You can throttle up a budget based upon search and impressions and what's going on out there. For example, weather trends down in the Gulf right now. We know there's a lot of rain. We know there's a lot of water. We know there's probably a lot of flooding, basements, mold, trees down, things of that nature. So if I'm the rental guy, I may want to throttle up all my ads for chainsaws and for pumps and for all kinds of blowers and dryers, right? I may want to tune that up because I know there's an opportunity today for generators and things of that nature. That's the beautiful thing about trends and opportunities within those trends. And that's what you just mentioned there, Cindy, is again, the beautiful thing, because you can look at the volumes and you can throttle up or throttle back or change or finely tune your ads in the impression-based world and in the pay-per-click world. So Google Ads, just to kind of finish the slide out, and I better start moving a little quicker because I promised I'd be done, and I think that I'm going to go a little longer than 12:50. Here we go. It's a viable option for businesses, and why it makes sense is because from an ROI standpoint, again, pay for performance. Think about this. You set the budget. We can give you suggestions and parameters, but it's your budget, and it's a daily budget. You will never go over whatever budget you set forth, right? If you set a budget for $20 today, your $20 is set in place, and we will go ahead and hunt those leads for you. Once that $20 is done, budget's up, your ads come down. Budget starts over tomorrow. And it's very fluid, right? I explained that to you. It can be set up for weather. It can be set up for any types of trends or opportunity. Black Friday coming, Cyber Monday coming, something that's going on locally within the Kansas City market that might not be happening in Omaha. Also, think about this. Google Ads can be the roadmap for organic. It will go ahead and it will give you data about who's searching, why they're searching, what they're searching for, and we can help build organic material to help your pages start achieving that, maybe that move to page 3 on Google, and then eventually get to page 1. Everybody would love to be on page 1 of Google all the time for every search that has to do with their business, but it's impossible. So if you use AdWords, you can kind of tinker around with that and silo it down and start thinking about it from that perspective. Again, here's something that Cindy, you might find interesting, is that using Google AdWords and impression-based advertising in Symphony can give you a lift. In concert, can give you a lift of 17 to 35% conversion rate. It can improve your conversion rate by using both. The pay-per-click ads, some people will never click on, Cindy, or the rest of the group. They just won't do it. If they're doing research, if they're doing anything above and beyond, they may not click on that pay-per-click. But no harm, no foul, right? Because if they didn't click, you didn't pay. Where pay-per-click really comes into play is if I have an immediate need. For any type of, or any aspect of your business, if there's an immediacy, right? Like in this case, 24/7 emergency service, I can be there in an hour, I take credit cards, bang, right? Or tying together the fact that you're out across the network in visual, and I see it again in pay-per-click when I need your service, boom. A lot of people, if they're just doing research, will bypass the pay-per-click. Simple enough. Finishing up on digital marketing, again, here's a couple things that I point out to you about tips or tricks, right? I ask you to define your customers and your marketing goals. You know, that helps you. Do you have a business plan? I call it a map, a market action plan. Some people have never written one, but how about this? A 30-day, a 60-day, a 90-day back of the napkin plan. We write it down, scratch it out, right? We can kind of figure that out. We got 30, 60, 90 coming. We know, like I said, we know that Black Friday's coming. We know Cyber Monday's coming. We know Halloween's coming. Can we plan for those things, right? Sure. Setting up goals and setting up your Google accounts, right? And your Google accounts correctly is a big deal. Research your keywords, targeting keywords. We can do that for you. We can help you create campaigns. We can help with adjusting bids, creating the advertising, writing the text, using extensions, connecting the analytics, and optimizing those campaigns. That all can be done as you start thinking about these silos in your profit centers. So again, if you're struggling, it's very easy for us to sit down and kind of come up with that back of the napkin market action plan for a particular profit center that might be trending right now. In closing, the must-haves, right? Display and Google and Bing ads. You need to have a good page to land your leads on. I say your website versus a landing page, you know, so be it. But the website is really that area of opportunity where you can build traffic, engage, answer questions, and convert customers. If it's Facebook, it might work as a landing page. You know, there's other landing pages out there, one pages, things of that nature that we can talk about. But if your website can do the work, I say let it do the heavy lifting. Look up your analytics. Make sure you have access to your analytics. Right? It's going to allow us to help you make future decisions based upon data and not guesswork. Think about your analytics as your roadmap, right? And give love and attention to your website over time based on those analytics, based on campaigns, based on the things that you're doing. And then start scheduling 30-day reviews to fall in love with your website again and give it attention, to look at your digital campaigns and to start thinking about adjusting that data, thinking about adjusting that content. Look for those trends, look for those opportunities. Weather is a real easy one, gang. It's the easiest one out there. Whether it's hot or cold, whether it's snowing, whether it's raining, it affects us in different ways. I'll give you an example. I have one that I do for an attorney in Kansas City. that on any given day in Kansas City Metro, there's 6 to 8 auto accidents, you know, whatever might happen. On a day that it rains, there might be 30 plus, right? We know that. On a day that it snows, there might be 60. And so with that being said, you know, we can follow those trends. On the first few days of April, when the sand and the gravel's still out, or March, early March, and people start getting out their motorcycles, there's a tendency for more motorcycle accidents in March and April because they haven't ridden them all year. And they go ahead and they hit some gravel from the sand and stuff that was left behind, and they end up dumping it, right? I know that for a fact. That is a trend. That is an opportunity for my particular attorney. So we turn up the volume on his campaigns in April and May, or excuse me, March and April. I hate to say that as an example. That's a bad one. But anyway, if you're thinking about taking the leap, we can help. If you want to take a deeper dive into any of these subjects that you see on the left, websites, Google My Business Analytics, the USA Today Network, marketing ideas, AdWords, video, connected TV, Waze, Facebook, LinkedIn, which we didn't talk about, Snapchat, Instagram, all of those channels we can talk about. And if you want to set up a time with Luke or anybody else from the Examiner, we will also give you 10,000 impressions just for setting that time up and talking with us. So I wanted to give you that opportunity to set that appointment with Luke, and please take advantage of it. And we'll measure the data off of those 10,000 impressions. We'll actually show it to you. I've got 6 minutes. I kind of moved to that last part very fast. So I'm going to end this with any questions and close out with this statement, is that this was a very, very high look into 3 things. Those very high level look into those 3 things really should help you kind of think this through. Hopefully there's some aha moments there. But if you're interested in pursuing this further, we can spend some time right now answering those questions. Or if you want to schedule that time, I'll give you those 10,000 impressions.
Well, thank you, Bob. This was very, very informative. We really appreciate you coming out today and talking with everyone and giving these suggestions on digital marketing. It's something that I think a lot of people are thinking about. So does anyone have any other questions for Bob before we close out? And before we go, we have to draw for that free ad. So anyone have any questions?
And I'll just say this was sort of that high level elementary. If you have or want to talk deeper and take a deeper dive, please let's chat. If you want to talk about analytics, you want to talk about the things that are driving, you know, the key performance indicators of your business and what's driving, we can dig into that. That's, you know, and if we want to do something at another level, again, not knowing or gauging my audience, I wanted to start here so that we had some ability to kind of build that foundation together. All right. So Bob, I think we'll have you pick a number between 1 and, let's see, 1 and 26. I'm going to go with lucky number 7. Number 7, Jennifer Palmer. You are today's winner. Are you still on the call, Jennifer? That's probably the wrong number. I know Jennifer Palmer.
Yeah, Jennifer's been disqualified, I'm afraid. She's with the Examiner.
Oh, okay. Well, okay, Bob, pick another number then.
I'll do a derivative of 7. How about 21? 21. Eric Gannett, are you on the call still? Is he there? There he is. He's there.
I'm here. Thank you.
Yay.
So, Eric, you're the lucky chamber member today. You've won a free digital ad with the Examiner, and I'm sure Luke will follow up with you.
Yeah, Eric, I put my email over in the chat, but I'll get your email, and whatever you'd like to do, we'll get it taken care of.
All right. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you, everyone. This has been a fantastic, informative meeting, and we really appreciate you coming today, Bob. And thank you, Luke, for getting us hooked up today. We appreciate everything the Examiner does for us. And I guess that's about it. We'll just say goodbye. Thank you all for attending. I appreciate the audience, and thank you so much.